Heading overseas, and diplomatic ties between Canada and India are rapidly deteriorating, with the two nations expelling the other's top diplomats as tensions over the murder of a Sikh separatist in Canada last year intensify. For more, South Asia correspondent Ellie Grounds joins us now from New Delhi. Good morning, Ellie. What's led to the expulsions of these diplomats from both countries?
Well, Steph, it's been a pretty wild few hours here in India following this story leading up to this point. It all started this afternoon when India's Ministry of External Affairs issued a statement, pretty heated statement, saying that on Sunday they got diplomatic communication from Canada suggesting that India's High Commissioner to Canada and some other diplomats were being named as persons of interest in the investigation into this murder of a Sikh separatist last year in Vancouver. Now, that statement accused Canada of concocting these allegations, of deliberately smearing India for political gain, and personally called out Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and accused him of long-running hostility towards India. And it said his government has consciously provided space to violent extremists and terrorists to harass and threaten Indian diplomats. A few hours later, we saw Canada's top diplomat, Stuart Wheeler, be taken to the Ministry of External Affairs for a meeting, and not long after that we got another statement where India said that they would be withdrawing their High Commissioner from Canada because they didn't think that the diplomats there were safe. After that, we then heard from Canada, and this is where things, got even more interesting, if that's even possible. We heard from the Canadian police where they released information from an investigation they've been doing, and they have said that they've found links tying agents of the Indian government to serious criminal activity in Canada, including violent acts like homicide, and also accused Indian diplomats of being involved in what they say are clandestine activities and leveraging their official positions to then feed information back to the Indian government. And now, after all that, we've come to the point where both countries have come out and announced that they are expelling 6 diplomats from their postings in both countries, including the top diplomat, the High Commissioner in both. And that's where we are now, with this extraordinary severity of tensions really increasing between these two countries.
Goodness, Ellie, it's quite a web, isn't it? Remind us of the backstory here. What were actually the circumstances of that murder in Canada last year?
Yes, it's certainly very complicated, but if you go back to June last year, that was when a Sikh separatist and a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, he was gunned down outside a temple in Vancouver's suburbs. And he's a Sikh separatist. He's seeking a different homeland called Khalistan, independent of India, which a lot of Sikhs in India, do hope for. Some would regard him as a peaceful human rights activist, but he was designated by the Indian government as a terrorist in 2020. Now, a few months after his death, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau came out and said that there were credible reasons to think that Indian government agents were somehow involved in this death. The Indian government has refuted those claims, says that there is no involvement whatsoever, but that's certainly been the line from Canada since then, and that's where we've gotten to this point where they've now, named the Indian High Commissioner to Canada and those other diplomats as persons of interest. So it's, a long-running, back and forth between the two countries that goes back to that murder in June last year.
So what happens now?
Well, I guess now we wait to see if those 6 diplomats, actually do leave the countries, get on planes in India and Canada and leave. And then it's sort of, could go one of two ways. We could see these tensions really escalate and the ties really deteriorate. Or we could see, as Canada's top diplomat, Stuart Wheeler, asked for earlier this evening, for cooperation. He said, Canada is willing to work with India on this. We need to get to the bottom of this. We need to discover who was behind this murder, and we need to, put this violence behind us. But given the severity and I guess how heated that initial statement from India was this afternoon, we've not seen rhetoric that furious from India so far. Given that statement, it remains to be seen whether both parties are willing and able to come to the table and work together on this.
Well, Ellie Grounds, thanks so much for staying up late to bring us this really fascinating story.